Thank you so much again for joining for today's information session. My name is Charlie Dill, and I'm the Associate Director of Admissions here in the admissions office at the Harvard Chan School. I'm joined by two colleagues today, and all three of us will be presenting and actively engaging with you in various capacities throughout today's session. And I'll pass it over to Lizzie to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lizzie, and I am an Assistant Director here on the admissions team at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Thank you so much for being here today. And it is our pleasure to introduce our Director of Admissions, Carrie Noonan.
Thank you, Charlie and Lizzie. Yes, my name is Carrie Noonan. I'm the Director of Admissions at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. And thank you so much for joining us today to learn more about Harvard Chan School, our community, and our options for graduate study. I'd like to thank you for your interest in public health. It's a really important career. I know we've all known that for a really long time, but I think that's become more evident to the world over the last 18 months. So we really thank you also for thinking about pursuing a career in public health. Located in Boston's Longwood medical area, our school welcomes students from around the world. Just like Charlie mentioned, we have people joining us for today's session from around the world. And we really value diversity, inclusion, and belonging. We recognize the importance of training public health professionals and leaders from diverse backgrounds. Our mission-driven community's core value is inscribed on our building, and it reads, "The highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights of every human being." I know I'm a very mission-driven person. I've been at the school for 19 years. I really value the interactions I have with prospective students, our faculty and staff every day. I'm amazed by what they do, and we look forward to your application. Hope you're able to join us in our community. Today, we begin our virtual visit week. The week will begin with broad topics, and those topics will become more focused as we move through the week. Many of the sessions, but not all of them, will be recorded. They will be posted on the event website once they're available. I encourage you to check out all of the sessions of interest. There are lots of great events and sessions, but I'd like to take a minute just to highlight the Office of Diversity and Inclusion section and session, as well as an Ask Me Anything that I'll be hosting at the end of the week on Friday. In closing, I'd like to thank my admissions colleagues for all the work they've put into today's event, as well as all of the activities this week, and to thank my colleagues from across the school. This really is a school-wide effort, and we appreciate everybody's participation in the event. Please know the admissions office is here to help you with any questions you have. We are approachable. If you remember nothing else from today's event, just know you can reach out to our office. We're there to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you to Carrie and to Lizzie. So with that, let's dive into our information session. So the mission of the Harvard Chan School is really about promoting health in the communities in which we live, learn, work, and play. And that manifests itself through a variety of different degree programs and areas of study across the school. So there's not necessarily one type of student that finds their way to public health, but we attract students from all sorts of different educational and professional backgrounds. So you might be sitting in class with someone on one side who comes from an education background, a person on another side who comes from a policy background, another side medical background. So there's so many different ways into public health that if you have an interest in some of the offerings that our school has, then I think you're gonna really like today's presentation to get a deep dive into what some of those more specific fields of study and degree programs are. Looking at the school at a glance, we have just under 1,000 students enrolled at our institution, which makes us sort of a medium-sized school of public health compared to some of our peer institutions. Within our student body, we have just under 70 different countries represented, which makes up about 40% of our student body being from outside the United States. I don't think we have all quite 50 US states represented, but we do have it anywhere from the low to mid 40s of the US states represented. So you truly will engage with folks from all over the US as well as all over the world when enrolled at the Harvard Chan School. To expand a little bit more about what Carrie was saying about where we're located. So if you're familiar with Harvard University, you may think of Cambridge, Massachusetts. That might come to mind for you right away. And that's where the vast majority of the different schools and colleges at Harvard University are located. But we're located just on the south side of the Charles River in the city of Boston proper on our Longwood Medical Campus. And this community has the School of Public Health sort of highlighted on the left-hand side of this chart here, or the image here. Just to the right of us is the Harvard School of Dental Medicine, and to the right of that is Harvard Medical School. Similarly, we're surrounded by different hospitals and research centers, so it makes it a very collaborative and dynamic place to study public health as well as healthcare more broadly. So if you're someone who's perhaps new or newer to considering different degree programs in public health, this chart is a really fantastic place to begin because it delineates the differences between some of our master's and our doctoral programs, and further tells you some of the differences that certain programs that are more research-based, as well as some programs that are more professional or practice-based. So at the master's level, on the professional side, we have the Master of Public Health, our MPH program. This is really our flagship degree program, the biggest single degree program at the school. Similarly, on the practice side, we have the Master in Healthcare Management, which we abbreviate as MHCM. On the research side, we have the Master of Science, which is the SM. And at the doctoral levels, on the research side, we have the Doctor of Philosophy, the PhD. And then on the practice side, we have the Doctor of Public Health, the DrPH. So all these acronyms and degree names are really just to get you thinking about where your interests more closely align, whether they're more on the research side of things or more on the practice side, and furthermore, if you're seeking master's or doctoral level training. In terms of our degree programs, we offer them in different credit amounts, which comes out to mean a couple of different things. First and foremost, how long a program takes to complete, as well as goes into some of the eligibility criteria for each program. So for the Master of Science program, we have 3 different varieties. And again, that's that research-based master's program. The 42.5 credit program takes 1 year to complete if pursued full-time. The 60 credit takes 1.5 years, and the 80 credit takes 2 years. In terms of knowing which track to pursue, it really comes down to eligibility. So for our 60 and 80 credit programs, we're looking for folks to come in with a prior bachelor's degree. And for our 42.5 credit program, we're looking for folks to come in with either a prior master's degree or significant professional experience. Within our Masters of Public Health program, we similarly have different options to pursue. We have our MPH 45 credit program, which takes 1 year to complete if pursued full-time, and the MPH 65, which takes 1.5 years to complete. And similar to our Master of Science programs, you would select the program that's right for you based on your eligibility criteria. So for the 65 credit program, we're looking for folks to come in with a bachelor's degree and at least 2 years of experience. And for the 45 credit program, we're looking for folks to come in with a bachelor's and 5 years of work experience, or if someone's earned a prior graduate degree, they could apply to the 45 credit program. So for example, if you were to go straight from undergraduate to medical school, or straight from undergrad to law school or business school, for example, then you could apply to the 45 credit track without having to have additional work experience. Now, we're often asked by students, what do you mean by work experience? And on a high level in the admissions office, we're just looking to see that you have the prescribed number of years of experience completed after you finish your undergraduate program. And you would have to have those years of experience completed prior to beginning our program. So you can still apply to us while you're finishing up those years of experience, but by the time you officially start classes at the Chan School, those years of experience would need to be completed. Similarly, since public health is such a broad and diverse field, we're not looking for a very specific type of experience, because just given that public health is so broad and people come from so many different backgrounds, that there's not one type of job or one type of role we're looking for. So it's really important to pursue opportunities that are of greatest interest to you. Next, we'll dive into the Master in Healthcare Management. So this program is a little bit different than some of our others, and that is a non-residential program for physicians and dental executives. So these are typically folks that work in a hospital or healthcare administration setting, typically in a leadership role, overseeing a sizable budget of about $1 million or more. You can certainly study the field of health management across our other degree programs. So this is not the only opportunity to engage with health management, but it's kind of a niche program for physicians and dental executives in order to be eligible. And then last but not least, our Doctor of Public Health, the DrPH, again, that's the practice-based doctoral program. That is a 3 to 4 year program with 2 years of coursework in Boston and then a 1 to 2 year field-based experience. In terms of eligibility, folks need to apply having earned a prior master's degree, does not have to be a master's of public health degree, and at least 6 years of work experience. So it's not quite a mid-career degree program, but it's very much a leadership degree program. So the faculty within the DrPH program are looking for examples of leadership across your 6 or more years of work experience. And then last but not least for this slide, we have the Doctor of Philosophy, the PhD. And as a reminder, this is the research-based doctoral program. This program is a little bit different than the others as well in that this PhD is offered through the Harvard Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. So all of the other programs on this slide are administered and facilitated through our office. So we work with applicants as they learn about the programs, apply to the school. But if you are interested in a PhD, you will apply through the admissions office at the Harvard Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. So the bulk of today's presentation will not focus on the PhD only because students do not apply through our office for that program. So now that I've hopefully gotten you thinking a little bit about where your interests lie, whether they're research practice, master's, doctoral, now I want to pivot to talk about the different fields of study that the school offers. So when a student applies to the Harvard Chan School, they don't just apply to the Masters of Public Health, or they don't just apply to the Master of Science, for example, but they detail the specific field of study that they're interested in. So they would apply to, let's say, looking at this first bullet point, a Master of Science program in the field of biostatistics. And this table outlines the different sort of options that we offer within each of our fields of study. So if we look at biostatistics, again, you can see they offer the Master of Science in all 3 varieties, the 1 year, the 1.5, and 2 year track, as well as the PhD. But if we pivot down to, let's say, health data sciences, you can see that that field is only offered in our 1.5 year program. So it's important to take a moment to think about what fields interest you the most. And furthermore, if you're eligible for the program now, or would you be by the time you apply to the school? Similarly, our Master of Public Health program does offer a variety of fields of study as well. You can see within our 65 credit track, we have 4 different options. You can see within our 45 credit track at the top, we have 7 different fields listed there. And then in the middle, you can see our epidemiology and generalist program as well. So on a high level, most of our programs at the Harvard Chan School are residential in nature, meaning that students would need to live near Boston to attend classes on campus. If you're someone who knows that they're only able to pursue a degree program remotely or partially remotely, then I really encourage you to focus on the middle section of this slide to see either our epidemiology program, which is a hybrid online on-campus program, or to our new MPH 45 generalist program, which is 100% online. Now, as I mentioned, a student does have to pick a particular field of study when applying to the school. And often we get questions from the applicants saying, how do I know which program is right for me based on my interests and goals? And one of the best pieces of advice I can give to you if you have that question is to explore some of our curriculum guides. So our MPH office produces a wonderful resource every year detailing the specific classes associated with each track of the MPH program. And I might ask one of my colleagues if they're able to pop a link to our MPH curriculum guides into the chat for the group. But this gives you a sense of the competencies across the programs, the learning outcomes, and the objectives that can really help you compare and contrast different programs based on your interests and goals. Throughout Virtual Visit Week, as Carrie mentioned, our sessions start rather high level, so we're glad you're here for the information session today. And as the week goes on, you will have the opportunity to meet with the different degree departments as well as the different fields of study. So most of these categories you see listed on your slide today will be hosting standalone sessions later in the week if you'd like to join for that as well. So with that, I will hand it over to Lizzie.
Thank you, Charlie. So now that we all have a sense of our degree program offerings, I would love to spend a little bit of time talking about how to navigate the admissions process. Before we dive in, as Charlie mentioned, this slide applies to all of our degree programs with the exception of our PhD programs. PhD applicants do apply through the Harvard Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, so would have a separate admissions process and separate admissions requirements. Our PhD colleagues are participating this week, so if you have any questions about their programs, we'd encourage you to check out the event schedule and attend some future events. So diving right in, our application cycle for program entry in 2022 is currently open. The deadline to apply to the majority of our programs is December 1st. You may apply by submitting a SOFIS application, which is the centralized application service for schools and public health. So it's really a one-stop shop for all of your application requirements. Everything can be submitted electronically. A lot of our other peer institutions also participate in SOFIS. So it's definitely a helpful one-stop shop. So walking through our admissions requirements, each item we discuss will be required in order for your application to be considered complete. And again, everything would be submitted directly through SOFIS. So starting off with transcripts, we require official transcripts from all colleges or universities attended in the US. So any non-degree as well as degree coursework that you've attended from an institution in the US should be submitted directly to SOFIS. For students who attended an institution outside of the US or English-speaking Canada, we would require a World Education Services or WES evaluation. A note that we do require the WES ICAP or International Credential Advantage package. This is the package that includes both the transcripts as well as the degree conferral or credential evaluation. And it can take some time for the WES to be processed and uploaded to SOFIS. So we do encourage students to start this process early. Again, this would be for all degree coursework. WES would be required for all degree coursework completed outside of the US. The GRE, a note that the GRE is optional this admission cycle. There is some variation by program, so I will detail this in a little bit more on the next slide. Letters of evaluation. We require a minimum of 3 letters of evaluation, and students may submit up to 5 letters of evaluation through SOFIS. We will consider all letters of evaluation submitted, and ideally we recommend that students have a mix of academic and professional references. We do understand that students' journeys towards graduate school and public health may vary, so if you are a recent graduate applying to a program, we understand you may have solely letters from academic references. If you've been working for quite some time, we also understand you may only have professional letters of evaluation. Regardless who you do choose to write your letters, we encourage you to select individuals, whether it's a research mentor, a former professor, a supervisor, but to select someone who can speak to your potential for success, both in the program as well as in the field of public health. So when considering who you might ask to write your letter of evaluation, you may want to ask yourself if this person can speak to your strengths. Can they provide specific examples? Are they aware of your goals? If not, it could be helpful to provide them with a copy of your CV or resume, as well as your statement of purpose. It can be really helpful, I think, just in terms of kind of differentiating between a really strong letter of evaluation and a positive letter of evaluation. So making sure you have that conversation with them early. Statement of purpose. So this is really your opportunity to share your journey and aspects about your background, experiences, and motivation for pursuing a graduate degree in public health that may not be conveyed elsewhere in your application. So this is really your space to demonstrate your passion, use your voice, and make your application come to life. So think about how your experiences, whether that's work experience, academic experience, lived experience, how that has motivated you to pursue the degree program that you're applying to. And not only the degree program, but also that specific area of studies. So not only the MPH program, but why the MPH program in epidemiology, for example. So why are you interested in that particular program, and how will it help you achieve your career goals? Is there something about that program that you feel will help build your skills for that next step you're hoping to take in your career? We want to hear about that. Everyone brings something unique to the table, so consider what you might contribute to your program or cohort when writing your statement of purpose. And finally, it is important to note that there are specific prompts for each program, which you can find both on our website as well as in the SOFIS application instructions, and that there's also a word limit for the statement of purpose, so definitely important to be both specific and concise. We also require your resume or CV detailing your academic and your work experience. And finally, if English is not your first language and you've not earned a degree from an institution where the language of instruction was English, as noted in your WES evaluation, then you would be required to submit the TOEFL or IELTS exam scores. If you have earned a degree from an institution where the language of instruction was English, you would not be required to provide an exam for English language proficiency. A note that our TOEFL minimum overall score is a 100 with preferred subsectional scores of a 23, And our overall minimum score for the IELTS is a 7. We don't have subsectional minimum scores for the IELTS. Finally, there is a SOFIS application fee, though the Harvard Chan School does not have a supplemental fee. There is a $140 fee associated with submitting your first SOFIS application and an additional $50 fee for any additional application after that. We do like to mention this just so folks are prepared and can help budget, but also to let you know that there are some resources available. I know that SOFIS offers a fee assistance program, and that's administered directly through SOFIS. So definitely look into that with the respective organization if you are interested in that. And I think that WES also offers a discount for students who have started their SOFIS application. So just things to keep in mind and keep an eye out for. Before moving on to the next slide, I will pause and share that our faculty do conduct a holistic file review. So again, all aspects of your application would be considered throughout the review process, and keep in mind that there are a lot of students may have strong applications for different reasons. So again, all factors would be considered. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, the school is standardized test optional this year. And again, when we're referring to standardized tests, we are referring to the GRE or equivalent. So if you've previously attended graduate school and have taken a standardized test for that school, we would accept that corresponding standardized test for the programs that are considering them. Again, the TOEFL or IELTS are still required. So we do get a lot of questions about what it means to be standardized test optional. So we'd like to spend just a couple minutes outlining that, as that does vary a little bit by program. As you'll see on this slide, both the MPH program as well as the MHCM program are not considering GRE or standardized test scores. So even if you choose to take them and submit them, they will not be reviewed as part of the application review process. For our SM programs and our DrPH program, the GRE is optional. For our SM programs in the biostatistics department, they are optional but recommended. So for students who are considering applying to a program that is considering standardized test scores where they are optional, I'll start by saying you can have a very strong application with or without submitting GRE scores. Again, we conduct a holistic file review, so the GRE would just be one factor of many considered in the review process. But I will also note, and this applies across all the programs, that math proficiency remains a really important part of the review process. So regardless of the program you're applying to, regardless of whether you choose to submit or not submit your standardized test scores, it is important to convey your quantitative abilities in your application, whether that's through your prior undergraduate or graduate coursework, could be through your work or research experience. Some students choose to have their recommender speak to their quantitative abilities, but definitely something to keep in mind and make sure that that is clear in your application. Next slide, please. So this leads us to funding your education. So to recap our timeline, our application cycle for admission is currently open, and the deadline to apply to the majority of our programs is December 1. Shortly after you submit your admissions application, our Office of Financial Aid will reach out to all completed applicants or applicants who have a complete application with information about how to apply for financial aid. There are some grants and scholarships available, and these do vary by program. So these instructions for applying for grants and scholarships will be included. And the deadline to apply for financial aid is January 8th, 2022. So something we like to highlight here, this is a little bit different than maybe some other graduate school timelines you might be familiar with, is that you would need to submit your application for financial aid prior to receiving your admissions decision. We then release admissions decisions electronically sometime between mid-February and mid-March, and students who are admitted would also be notified of any awards they may have received at the same time. Our students do typically fund their education with a combination of funding sources, and we encourage students to explore all of their options. Our Office of Financial Aid has some excellent tools on their website. They have a student budgeting tool, an external fund finder. So we definitely encourage you to check those out. I may ask one of my colleagues to post the link to the external fund finder, as that is really helpful. Our Office of Financial Aid will also be hosting 2 information sessions this week. So would definitely encourage you to attend those if you're available. One will be this afternoon from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's for US students, and one tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time specific for international students. And they will be discussing again in more detail what opportunities for grants and scholarships look like at the Harvard Chan School. Next slide, please. I know a lot of students are curious about what opportunities that a degree program in public health may provide. We are happy to share that in a typical year, around 90% of our graduates secure employment or pursue higher education within 6 months of graduating. And the postgraduate career opportunities that our graduates pursue really are as broad as the interests and experiences that our students join us with. Postgraduate plans certainly depend on the program and area of study, but our students do go on to work in high impact careers and are prepared to make a difference in communities around the world. Our Office of Career and Professional Development does solicit a survey from graduates each year and have a great interactive tool on their website as well, where you can filter out postgraduate outcomes based on program and field of study. So that's also an excellent tool to explore, both to see where our students end up, but also can be helpful at this point in the process if you have an idea of a career you might hope to have or a dream job, and you can kind of work your way backwards and hone in on your interests on which program might be a good fit. Our Office of Career and Professional Development offers excellent resources for our students and alums, and will also be hosting a specific session tomorrow. I believe that their session will be from 11 a.m. Eastern time to 12 noon. And so we would definitely encourage you to attend that if you're available as well, to learn more about what kind of resources are available to our Harvard Chan School students. Next slide, please. So finally, I know we're all in the virtual space today, so I'd like to close out with highlighting some of our student voices that really show what unique aspects there are at the Harvard Chan School and what makes the student experience so special and help our community kind of come to life. So when asked by Harvard Chan School, our students have shared that they really appreciate the ability to explore new interests in public health. The Harvard Chan School offers students the opportunity to tailor the curriculum to your interests, whether that's through cross-registering in other fields of study. Students are also able to cross-register in other Harvard schools, other Harvard graduate schools, whether that's the business school or the Harvard Kennedy School. Students can also cross-register for elective coursework at MIT or Tufts. We also offer 8 different interdisciplinary concentrations, such as maternal and child health, public health leadership, population mental health. And these are concentrations, are non-degree areas of study, similar to an academic minor in an undergraduate education system that helps students expand on their knowledge and experience in an area of interest in addition to their field of study or area of specialization. Some students also use the practicum component if they're pursuing the MPH program as an opportunity to explore career interests that they may not already have experience in. Through the student experience, students have also found the empowerment to have a greater impact through learning and leadership. There are curricular opportunities such as that applied or hands-on learning experiences that are central to all of our degree programs, whether that's the research or practicum experience. Students have also shared the opportunities to work with faculty and learn from experts in their field is a highlight. I think our students would share that our faculty members are quite approachable, that their professors have been helpful in connecting them to projects or community organizations. So we hope you have the opportunity to connect with other members of our community, so our staff and faculty later this week. Students also have the opportunity to build upon their leadership outside of the classroom. We offer over 40 different student organizations that are all student-led. You can certainly explore which organizations are currently existing, but if you see something, or if you don't see an area that might be of interest, students can always start a new organization. We also have a very active student association, so definitely a lot of opportunities to get involved and a lot of opportunities to build community. Finally, the opportunity to collaborate with peers with different backgrounds and experiences while all sharing a similar mindset and vision to improve the health of communities around the world. And I know both Charlie and Carrie touched upon this. Our students are from all over the country, all over the world, and bring a wide variety of personal, professional, academic experiences to the classroom and beyond, so really creating a dynamic and inspiring learning environment. Community is also one of the most valued aspects of the student experience. So students join not only the Harvard Chan School community, but that of the university as well. And this extends beyond to the alumni community. We do have a network of over 14,000 alums who live and work in more than 100 countries. So your peers do become your colleagues and a powerful global professional network. I also think that our students would describe the school as having a really welcoming atmosphere and collaborative learning environment, but would encourage you to continue to attend some sessions throughout the week. There will be lots of opportunities to hear from students directly. So definitely be sure to ask them about their experiences to learn firsthand. I know we went through a lot of information quickly, so we can go to the next slide and open it up for question and answer. I see quite a few questions have come in through the Q&A box. That is how you can communicate with us today. So if you have any questions that you thought of or something you would like to hear more about, please feel free to type them in and we will do our best to answer them. Thank you all. Okay, so kicking it off, it looks like quite a few questions have been answered through the type feature, but we will go through and answer a few questions live. So I will start off. So Charlie, we'll kick off with you. Somebody asks, for the DrPH program, is the 6+ years of work experience counted after the master's degree is completed?
That's a great question. So for the DrPH program, it's 6 years of post-baccalaureate work experience. So it does not have to be 6 years of work after the conclusion of the master's degree. So you could do a few before, a few after, or however your academic and professional journey has arranged itself.
Great, thank you. Somebody asks, where can I find the PhD program focus sessions? So you can find that on our virtual visit 2021 week event website. I will try and post the link in the chat for you all in just a moment. But that is where you can find the full list of events, including some of our PhD specific program sessions. Thank you for asking. All right, let's see. Okay. Charlie, I'll ask you another question. So somebody asks, what are some of the STEM certified MPH programs? I have a medical degree and 5 years of work experience in healthcare.
Yeah, great question. So in terms of STEM, and for those of you that don't know what STEM is, oftentimes we are asked which fields are STEM as it relates to visa processes for some of our students from outside the United States. And different fields of study at the school qualify as STEM, some do and some don't. So if you have very specific questions about a specific program that you're interested in, you're always welcome to shoot us an email message, and we're happy to double check to see if that program you're interested in particular is considered STEM or not as it relates to the visa process. And then also, I see here you mentioned you have a medical degree and at least 5 years of work experience in healthcare. So then you would certainly be eligible for our MPH 45 credit program, which again is that 1-year track if pursued full-time.
Great, thank you, Charlie. Let's see, Carrie, I have a question for you if you don't mind addressing. So somebody asks, for the SM and 42.5 credit program in social and behavioral sciences, it's a question about the professional experience required. Can it be in the general social sciences? The student shares that as an economist, their experience has mostly been as a consultant and with government agencies. So if you don't mind expanding a little bit more on the work experience.
Sure, I would actually encourage the applicant to either email our office or attend a session offered by that program. So the Master of Science 42.5 credit programs really vary by department. Some departments are looking for prior doctoral degrees, others are looking for prior master's degrees, yet others are looking for extensive work experience. So I'd be curious to have a more detailed conversation. So I would encourage the prospective student to email our office at admissions@hsph.harvard.edu. It can be helpful if you include a resume or CV, and then we could set up a time to connect.
Great, thank you, Carrie. So our email is on the slide. I also just posted it in the chat. And as Carrie mentioned, just to highlight that our academic departments and the programs are also an excellent resource for prospective students. So hopefully you're able to connect with them both later this week or beyond. Somebody asks if the transcript from an international student can be evaluated by the ECE, and I can touch on this briefly. We do require the WES evaluation. There are rare circumstances if the WES does not evaluate your institution's transcripts or credential. Please be in touch with us and we can explore other options. But in general, the WES is required for all degrees earned outside of the US. I hope that helps answer your question. Next, somebody asks if the December 1st deadline is for submitting or submitting and verifying your SOFIS application. And I can touch on this as well. So we do encourage students to submit their application by mid-November if possible, so that all of your materials are in and complete by the December 1st deadline. We do not operate on a rolling basis, so all complete applications will be reviewed in the context of the applicant pool following the December 1 deadline. With that being said, technically speaking, as long as you submit that SOFIS application by December 1st, any outstanding requirements can follow, such as a letter of evaluation or something like that. But we do encourage students to do their best to have a complete application by December 1 if possible. I hope that helps clarify. And colleagues, feel free to jump in if there's anything else you'd like to add. All right, let's see. So somebody asks, and Charlie, I'll ask you this one. Do you have any full scholarships for the international students? And where can we get more information about financial aid?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll kind of start high level and work my way in. So for students to be considered for scholarships and awards, they would fill out a supplemental application through our Office of Financial Aid after first applying for admission through our office through the SOFIS application. And by filling out that supplemental application, you're considered for university level funding, school level funding, department level funding. So it's really your one-stop shop for being considered for Harvard related funding. Students typically use a variety of funding sources to finance their education. So, some students may receive a school or university level scholarship. Other students may use outside funding through our external database of funding opportunities that Lizzie mentioned earlier. Other students may use some personal savings to finance their education, and many students also use a loan component. So it's more likely that students would kind of use a variety of funding sources than it would be less likely that a student would use any one of those sources as a full and sole funding opportunity. However, I will also do a plug that our Office of Financial Aid will be hosting a session to go into much more detail on this topic today for focusing primarily on US citizens, and then tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time, focusing on international students. So high level for now, but stay tuned for more information in some of our following sessions as well.
Great, thank you. Carrie, somebody is asking if there are any exceptions to the IELTS or TOEFL.
Again, this might be something where we need more detail. So for applicants who have a degree from an English language institution, so let's say they attended university or a graduate program in the United States, United Kingdom, or another country where the institution uses English as the language of instruction, then no, they would not need to submit the IELTS or TOEFL. However, I would say that if somebody has a question and it's not clear based on the information on our website, we would encourage you to email us and we will definitely respond, or we could set up a time to connect.
Thank you. Charlie, do you have any joint or dual degree programs for the MPH? This particular student is quite interested in an MBA in MPH, as well as health policy and health innovation.
That's a great question. So we do have dual and joint degree opportunities. Unfortunately, we don't have one as it relates to an MBA program with Harvard Business School. But on a high level, we offer our joint programs with Harvard Law School. So first-year students at Harvard Law are able to apply to add an MPH to their studies. We also offer a dual degree program with a Master of Urban Planning program at Harvard. And then finally, and probably our most popular dual degree combo is that students that are currently enrolled in an accredited medical program or dental program can apply to do our MPH alongside their medical or dental training. The neat thing about this last option, though, is you do not have to be enrolled at Harvard Medical School in order to apply. So you can be enrolled in any accredited US or Canadian institution in an MD or DO program to apply. And typically students will take a gap year between what would be their third and fourth year of medical school to pursue our one-year MPH program. So that is a fairly popular option. However, to your question about an MBA program, we certainly have students who complete programs back to back. Perhaps they will pursue an MBA prior to coming to the Chan School. Maybe they'll pursue an MBA after their time at the Chan School, but there's no mechanism, unfortunately, in place to do those both together in a formal dual degree capacity.
Great, thank you. Carrie, somebody's asking if in the SOFIS application, there is a section where applicants can expand on their experiences and additional experiences. Where do you recommend that students or applicants detail their work experiences? And we actually, I'll take this one step further. We get a lot of questions about what to include in this section as opposed to a CV or resume. So do you mind touching on that a little bit?
Sure, I was actually just typing up the response to that one. So let me take the second part of your question. So yes, we often get questions of if I'm submitting my resume or CV, do I still have to fill out the experiences section on SOFIS? The answer is yes. It definitely helps to provide a more detailed picture. Our faculty will be looking at all of the sections of the application, so it is helpful to have that in there. In terms of the experiences versus additional experiences, off the top of my head, I don't recall the difference, but I would say to complete those sections. So I noticed on the question, it references, it seems like that section might reference activities done while obtaining the baccalaureate degree. However, we have lots of applicants who either have additional graduate degrees or many years of work experience. And my recollection is that the experiences section is completed. I would say, again, if I keep referring people to either our admissions email address, or we also have virtual office hours. I would encourage the prospective student to attend either virtual office hours or the admissions session. Email the admissions address, and we can provide more detail. I just don't have that section up in front of me right now. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Carrie. Charlie, somebody asks, I apologize, my questions just jumped a step. I have a bachelor's degree in healthcare management and 4 years of experience. Am I eligible for the MPH 45? And what might the student's options be?
Yeah, so if you have a bachelor's degree and 4 years of experience, then as long as you would have that fifth and final year of experience by the time you would enroll in our program, then you would be eligible to apply. Now, high level, thinking about the application timeline, you always apply roughly 1 year before you'd like to begin the program. So for example, if you're applying right now in fall of 2021, you're really applying for the 2022 program start. So you could apply now, provided that by the time your program begins in 2022, that you would have reached that 5-year mark.
Great, thank you. And then Carrie, somebody asked what the usual number of students who enroll in the MPH program is per year.
Hold on one second.
Oh, I realize you might be typing an answer to a different question. So one of us can take it if you're already answering.
Yeah, if you're okay taking it, that's great.
Yeah, sure. So our MPH program is one of the larger programs at our school. It varies by, I guess, field of study, but typically per field of study, there are around 30 students. But that would be, so there are some fields of study that are offered in both the 45 credit program and the 65 credit options. That would be, for example, like health policy, 30 students in the 45 health policy and 30 students in the 65. So combining all of the different fields of study, it is one of our larger programs. Hopefully that helps answer your question. All right, let's see. I'm seeing some students are asking kind of specific questions about their background and if they're eligible or if they might be competitive. I'll echo again that we do conduct a holistic file review. So without a completed SOFIS application, we can't comment on how competitive you may be within our applicant pool. But if you do have specific questions about eligibility based on your background, we would encourage you to reach out to us or attend that if you're specifically the MPH program that you're wondering about. Either attend their session. They are hosting a program session on Wednesday, or reach out to us or their office. Their email is very similar to ours. It's mph@hsph.harvard.edu. Okay, so, great question. So Charlie, somebody asks, can we change our concentration or our field of study after enrolling in the MPH program? And could you speak again to the difference between the 45 and 65 credit curriculum or options?
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. So generally speaking, you should do as much research as you possibly can prior to applying to the program, just to double and triple check that you're applying to the degree program and field of study that makes the most sense for you based on your interests and goals. And the curriculum guide is really, in my opinion, the best place to start because it gives you a lot of detail on the classes and it helps you really think about the skills that you're looking to gain from additional graduate training in public health. Having said that, there's always instances where someone begins a program and realizes that maybe a different field of study would likely be a better fit for them. And there is a way in which students can petition to change their field of study. However, I will say it's not a guaranteed switch. So students should really try and focus on the front end to apply to the program that makes the most sense because it's not a guaranteed opportunity to switch at a later time. And Lizzie, could you repeat the last part of that question for me again?
One moment.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just, sorry, I'm skipping around the questions. Oh, the difference between the 45 and the 65 credit options.
Of course, thank you so much. Yeah, so on a high level, looking beyond eligibility in regards to, the number of years of work experience someone has to have, the 45 credit program, if pursued full-time, is one academic year. So it's kind of short and sweet, if you will, versus the MPH 65 is a 1 1/2 year program. So it's 3 semesters, if you will, with an internship component in the summer between that second and third semester. So the 65 credit program has a longer internship component because students do it in that summer versus the 45 credit program. Students may choose to do their practicum experience kind of part-time throughout the academic year, or some students participate in more of an intense practicum during the January term, which we call our J term. So it's kind of a more condensed version for folks in that program. So as you think about which program makes the most sense for you, eligibility should really be your guiding principle. So if you are eligible for the shorter program, but choose to apply to the longer program, you may hear from one of us at the school just to clarify your intentions because we tend to really encourage people to apply to the program to which they're eligible. So it's less of a preference, but more of just an eligibility piece.
Great, thank you. I've seen several questions that ask when admissions decisions are released. So just to recap this, so typically you would apply by December 1 and admissions decisions are released electronically sometime between mid-February and mid-March. So hopefully that helps give you a better sense of our timeline. Somebody also asks if we have a minimum GPA to apply, and I can touch on this quickly. We do not have minimum GPA requirements or GRE score requirements for programs that are considering the optional standardized test, since we do conduct a holistic file review and all aspects of the application are considered in the review process. With that being said, a lot of students ask for guidance on this and what a competitive GPA might be. Again, applications may be strong for various reasons, but in general, we do encourage applicants to aim for A's and B's in their coursework. Okay, let's see. So somebody asks if we would have access to admissions office hours to ask questions that aren't covered during this session. So thank you for asking. I think Charlie or Carrie might have mentioned this, but our office does host office hours weekly. They are held via Zoom where we enable the waiting room. So there's a chance to ask a one-on-one question. Those are posted to our events and opportunities page on our website. So before we close out today, I'll make sure to get both the virtual visit week schedule as well as our upcoming events and opportunities beyond this week. I'll make sure to post that in the chat. So thank you.
And we'd love to have you join for the virtual office hours. It's really a chance to make sure that all of your questions are answered as it relates to degree program eligibility, making sure you're aware of, kind of what the curriculum would offer you based on your interests and goals. So we're very happy to answer questions you have. Throughout this visit week, of course, we hope that even beyond our time in the admissions virtual office hours, that you have a chance to delve deeper with the departments as well. So just a plug for some of their sessions later in the week, there'll be department staff. In some instances, faculty will be joining as well, depending on the department. So just another opportunity to have more of those questions answered as well.
Great. And Charlie, I'll ask a question to you. And it kind of goes off the GPA minimum piece. So somebody's noticing that specifically on the Global Health and Population Department website that students are required to take a calculus and statistics course and receive a B+ or higher. So the student is wondering if this is a minimum requirement or a strict requirement, And if you could just touch on maybe some program specific requirements and where students can find more information about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll take a step back and work back towards that question specifically. So the vast majority of our programs at the school do not have formal prerequisite requirements, but global health and biostatistics are two examples of departments that are looking for students to at least take in some specific classes. And these are really requirements that are set in place because these departments are more quantitative in nature. So the departments want to make sure that students would be able to handle the academic rigors of our curriculum as it relates to their quantitative backgrounds and just be prepared in that respect. So with that, we are happy to share, the departments asking for these classes and the grades, but if you have specific questions about if there's wiggle room with those grades, if you got, a B versus a B plus versus an A minus, I would encourage you to reach out to the specific department of interest just to chat with them more about that, just to see if they would advise you to do any additional steps if you are in fact below a certain recommended grade for any of those particular classes.
Great, thank you. Somebody is asking, and I see a couple similar themed questions. So part one is if we have a mentorship program, and I'm not sure if you mean for prospective students at the time of applying or what resources might be available to current students. So if you don't mind either clarifying that, but we can touch on something similar. If it's for prospective students, similarly, somebody asks if they would like to contact a current student to know a little bit more about their experience, how might they do that? Charlie, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So if you're looking to connect with a current student, we do have a few students that work with our office, our admissions ambassadors. I will say they don't represent each and every program across the whole school though. So if you're intent on meeting with a specific student from a specific department, we will do our best to chat with you and facilitate that. But we may also refer you to one of our academic departments who work more closely with their specific student populations. So that's definitely, a first option that's available to you. As far as mentorship goes, more broadly though, we don't have a formal mentorship program for prospective students. However, when students are admitted, there are opportunities through the schools various offices to connect with alumni in more depth as it relates to their interests professionally and academically. So there are many support mechanisms and opportunities for current students, but it just kind of depends on where anyone is in the process, whether they're an applicant or an admitted student, and we have different opportunities within that.
Great, thank you so much. If Carrie is available, I will ask this question to her. Somebody is asking if not submitting a GRE score would make an application less competitive.
The first question I would have, and this, I don't need an answer right now, but which program is the person applying to? So there are different levels of what's happening with the GRE right now. So I've seen a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll just try to summarize. So GRE, this is just for this year. Our GRE optional policy is just for this year. We had it last year as well. And this is as a result of the pandemic. There was a question about if it applies for the future. We don't know. I would suggest to check back in July of 2022 to see if we will be requiring the GRE or other standardized exams for entry year 2023. For the programs that you see listed, I see that, thank you for pulling up the slide. For the programs that list GRE not required, not reviewed, so the Master of Public Health, the Master in Healthcare Management, you do not need to submit the GREs. Even if you do submit them, they're not going to be reviewed. For the programs that list the GRE as optional but recommended, you'll see that these are our very heavily quantitative programs. So biostatistics, computational biology, and quantitative genetics and health data science. For those programs, again, it's optional. They are recommending it. If you choose not to submit the GRE, you may want to ask your recommenders to attest to your quantitative ability. You may want to provide information in your statement about your quantitative ability, but again, it's optional. And then for the other programs you see listed below that, the Master of Science and the other departments, the DrPH, it is truly optional. So it's really up to you whether or not you submit it. I think Lizzie mentioned earlier the importance of quantitative ability on, as you know, public health is a quantitative discipline. on the spectrum of schools of public health, we are very heavily quantitative. So it is important for applicants coming into our programs to have quantitative ability. It doesn't mean that the GRE necessarily has to be the way to show that, but it is helpful to provide that information in your statement, or to have your recommenders touch on it. You may have information on your resume or CV where it's evident. But those are just the different components we would suggest you think about. So to answer the question, which I think was originally, if it says it's optional, am I at a disadvantage? I would say no. I would just say that the faculty are really going to want to understand what your quantitative ability is.
Thank you, Carrie. Somebody asks, what is the best degree for a student with no work experience right after earning their bachelor's degree? And I can touch on this a little bit. So I think the first couple of questions you might want to ask yourself is, what field of study are you interested in pursuing, and what are you hoping to do after graduation? And what does your timeline look like? So if you have your heart set on applying to graduate school right after earning your bachelor's degree, I would consider taking a look at some of our research-oriented programs. So both our SM 80 credit and 60 credit programs. So that would be the 2-year and 1.5-year programs, require a bachelor's degree, but do not require work experience. So I would consider taking a look at some of those programs in the areas of specialization. In addition, our PhD programs require a prior bachelor's degree. They don't necessarily require prior work experience, but again, I would speak with the program to understand what makes an application competitive for those programs, since our office does not handle those. So those are a couple of things. If you do have your heart set on kind of the professional practice oriented degree, I might think about taking a couple of years to get that full-time work experience. It might even be helpful in honing in on your interests and help you get the most out of your program. And then consider maybe the MPH 65 would be the earliest program that you could apply for with a bachelor's degree and 2 years of full-time post-baccalaureate work experience. So I hope that's helpful. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us or visit us during office hours. We would be happy to provide more individualized counseling or assistance if you have further questions. So recognizing that we have 3 minutes left, thank you all so much for your engagement and for your excellent questions. And know that this is just the first session of many throughout the week. So there will be a lot of opportunities to hear from different voices in our community, as well as a lot of opportunities to have your questions answered. But before we wrap up today, I'm going to pose the same question to both Charlie and Carrie. If there's one piece of parting advice you might give to prospective students who are considering applying or currently working on their application.
I can jump in with that. So I would say just to do as much research as you possibly can. Public health is a very broad field, and as you explore different opportunities across different schools, it'll feel ever more broad because every school is a different name for seemingly similar topics. So do your research and find out which program is going to offer you the curriculum that relates really closely with your interests and goals. As you have hopefully seen from our presentation today, a lot of our programs are really quick. You know, a lot of them are 1 year, 1.5 year, and of course we have some 2-year programs too. But there's not a lot of time once you're enrolled to really, dive in, dabble around. So it's good to be focused in the ways that you can to come in to really know what you'd like to get out of the program. And the more preparation you can on the front end in terms of familiarizing yourself with curriculum, opportunities, different things like that will really help you make the most of your experience.
And I think to add on to that, it's similar. It's the statement of purpose and objectives, really honing in the statement on what your interest is, making sure you know which is the correct statement for your program. So some of our programs have very specific statements and require specific responses in specific formats. Others are more general, but you want to be very focused in your response in regard to what you're interested in studying. So I think it is the research, the preparation, and along with that comes meeting the deadlines. It's really important to make sure you submit by the deadline. We might have covered this earlier, but we like and ask that people submit by mid-November, even though you can still submit up until December 1st. But really following up on your application, your SOFAS application, making sure that everything has arrived and is there so that we can actually send your application out to review to the faculty.
Great. Thank you so much. So it is 11 o'clock here in Boston. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you again for your engagement. We hope that you are able to join us again soon.